All right. Coming at you live now from Cuenca. My name's Kyle David. We're talking today about how to come up with your business idea. That is a really big thing. And you'd think that it's just kind of luck and you just kind of happen upon it. And some people would have you believe that's the case, and maybe for some people it is. Maybe that's the way it works. Some people say like, oh, you can't engineer your business idea; it just kind of comes to you. Maybe it comes to you in a vision. I don't know, but what's that in Silicon Valley? He takes mushrooms and ends up in the bathroom tripping, trying to come up with a name for their business. Um, but the thing is, everyone's got to take advice from people who they um, learn things from best. And but for me, that didn't really work. I've always found that it's better as a way to come up with a business idea is to come up with a list. Actually, there's a few different things, and there's a few different ways that you can come up with this business idea. And I was just chatting with a friend about this earlier this week. She gave me a call and she's like, I'm trying to come up with a business idea. Not really sure. It could be this thing, it could be that thing. What should I do? And then we walked through it. I realized, this is something that can really help anyone. And I recently started another business. This one's a grant writing business for social enterprises, mostly in developing countries that want to raise grants or develop their strategy, raise a bunch of capital. And it took a while to come up with that idea, even though it's pretty basic. So I'm in this series, I'm just going to try to lay everything out there and talk about how I did things in my business. And I hope that I would save other people, some time coming up with all this stuff. So, yes, that's what we're going to talk about today. And, this is not just relevant for people who are starting a business, but if you are pivoting or you're starting a new product line, the same process applies, but it's a little bit more narrow, obviously, because you can't just do anything. It's a little bit more focused on this one thing. But we're also going to talk about my business ideas. I'm going to share my business ideas with you, and I'm not going to say they're worth a lot. A lot of them are pretty hilarious. We call them fart ups, the ones that there's like a startup, but it's more farty than starty. But by the end, we're going to get to sort of one question that will really change how you think about what business you might want to get into to make it a whole lot easier. And we're going to get to that in good time. So recently I recorded a podcast with a friend, Ryan Rowe, he's now a business partner of mine, and he started a company called Kimono, and we talked about how he started his business, how they came up with the idea, and we're going to follow more or less his process, which is pretty similar to my process as well. And you'll be happy to hear that they did sell the company eventually to Palantir. So yeah, check out that podcast, and there's a link right there. And this was his basic process. So he had some best friends that he wanted to start a business with, and it took some time to find these people in his life, because you're going to do a business with them for a long time. So it's basically like getting married. It's pretty serious. I've had something like 10 business partners, and 5 of them we split up in not very amicable ways, and I think mostly that's my fault. For one, not being the best business partner, and 2, picking the wrong person. So pick the right person for sure. So he had these a few people that he wanted to start a business with, and they came up with a list, kind of a spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet guy. I like making lists. As I go through things that I've done in my life, I find somewhere in my notebook I've got a long list, and the last item is the one that I was like, yeah, that's the one I'm going to do. So I stopped writing the list when I came to that point. So they had this long list, and they decided to fly and meet up, because they were in different parts of the world, met up in San Francisco, and started working through this list of ideas. So the first thing is make a list of all the people that you might want to start a business with, because that really limits the number of people that you can that limits the number of ideas, because you could do anything maybe, but you only have your friends who you want to start a business with maybe you only have so many things in common that you'd actually want to start a business on together. And then So that's the first thing. Make that list of who you might want to start a business with. Second is make that list of ideas. So we're going to come back to another recording why you might want a co-founder, why that's actually really important. We're not going to talk about it today because it's a really big topic, but bookmark this and we're going to talk about it then. I'm not just saying that for me because I want you to, I want to get it's another subscriber. I mean, I love having another subscriber. I love that little hit of dopamine. But as a founder and as just an effective person in the world, you have to come up with some kind of strategies, come up with ways of reducing your cognitive load because you're not going to remember in a week, who is this Kyle guy? How am I going to find this thing again? So just bookmark that. And we're going to talk about minimizing cognitive load as well in some other episode way down the line. So the next thing to do is, get out your spreadsheet. I like Google Sheets personally. And write down all the things that you'd prioritize in the next business venture. So things like maybe the location, scalability, subject matter, profit margin, existing skills, and that's going to maybe be across the top of this spreadsheet. This is a really super analytical way of doing this. I just had lunch, so I'm not as sharp as I could be, but I think that I'm still there. But write those down. All those different items. Okay, so now we want to come up with the different ideas that we're going to measure these against. And one way to come up with these ideas, maybe you've come up with them in day-to-day life, you've written them down in a notebook, just write those down. Next, a good strategy for doing something interesting is doing the next most interesting thing around. So let's think about this in terms of make an analogy of climbing a mountain. So one way to try to climb the tallest mountain is to strategize and look at maps and try to figure out where the tallest mountain is. Assuming you don't exactly know where mountains are. Let's say this is like, the time of Christ. You're trying to figure out how to climb the tallest mountain. You don't have good maps of what's where. So you can try to talk to people and try to get advice. That's one way to do it. Another way is to climb the tallest mountain you can see. So there's probably some high point near you. Climb that mountain. From there, you'll see another high mountain that's maybe even higher. Climb that one and keep climbing them like that. And that's another way. I think that's a pretty good heuristic for life in general is do the next most interesting thing. Don't plan too much. We're doing a little bit of planning now, but don't plan too much. You can't come up with a spreadsheet that's going to prove which business idea is going to be the best. You can only give yourself kind of like guides along the way. So think about what are the next most interesting things you can do. And another way to think about that is, let's say you're just at home, you're kind of bored. You want to do something really interesting, but you don't know what to do. But a little bit of interesting things. You could go to a restaurant and there's a friend who's got a dinner party. So maybe you go to a dinner party because that's kind of interesting. But at the dinner party, I bet you're going to find something even more interesting there. You'll meet some other person or some other event, and then you'll do that thing, which is even more interesting. So you climb this interesting ladder. So think about what's the next most interesting thing that you could do. What's interesting to you? Not like what's interesting to the world, but what's interesting to you. Like what's interesting to me right now is I love going on motorcycle trips. So okay, that's interesting. There could be something there. I like hosting dinner parties. I like going to Burning Man. I'm really fascinated about storytelling right now. Learning a lot about polyamory. I'm not sure if any of these lead to a business particularly, but some of these are going to lead somewhere pretty interesting, I believe. So let's take a look at this spreadsheet I've put together of some of my ideas that I was, talking about with some friends. And I think this is the one. I'm going to share this spreadsheet. Great. Yeah, this is the one. Great. So here you can see all the different things. Here's the business ideas, and here's all the different things that I care about. Low startup capital required. I have something unique to add. Protectable. Apparently, I didn't fill out that one, which I guess goes to show it's like it's not a perfect science. This is just kind of like what do you care about, and if you don't fill it out, probably you didn't care about it that much. Something I could do for 10 years because in a business, usually it takes 10 years to actually accomplish anything interesting. Um, so yeah, I'm screen sharing. That's good. Um, so it maybe takes 3 years to get domain expertise and 2 years to actually build something in that domain expertise. And then maybe there's some kind of catastrophe that happens at some point in the market, slow down. So that takes 3 years, and then it takes 3 years to recover. So 10 years later, you finally have something. For me, it's really important that I can travel. I used to have a restaurant. I couldn't travel. So I want something I can travel. It's got to be a growing market because I think a rising tide floats all boats. It doesn't necessarily need to be a huge market, but as long as it's growing, then you're not fighting tooth and nail. If it's a shrinking market, then that's a super competitive market. It doesn't really feel like it's my style. Some people would like that, but for me, no. Suitable for my personality, size of the opportunity, and then I wrote recession proof, which apparently I didn't fill out. Maybe it wasn't that important to me. And then I just totaled them here. Took the sum and made some little notes here. Like, so the first idea here, podcast, it's not really a full business idea. It's more of a lead generation strategy. I don't think you can really make money on a podcast. At least that's just, it's only part of it. Like Tim Ferriss, really successful podcast, but I doubt he makes most of his money there. Or Seth Godin, very very successful podcast, but probably makes more money from selling his books and doing speaking events. So it's really lead generation for that. So I listed all these different there are different things. Podcast, Grantly, a grant writing business. That's the one I actually started. Network of homes for couples who travel Latin America. So it's kind of like sort of like an Airbnb, but more exclusive. YouTube video series, Uber for mentoring and coaching, and then I look at these different things here. So like this Uber for mentoring, kind of like a website that is a marketplace for mentors and coaches. I was like, well, I don't really have much I can add there. Actually, I've never had a coach before in my life. I'm not even sure if it's a good thing. So, that's doesn't seem like it'd be very helpful, right? I did tester for dosage of LSD and shrooms before usage. Like, I have nothing really to add there. I think it's a pretty small market opportunity. There's some other ones in here. Thai restaurant in Colombia. I mean, again, it's cool. I could definitely do it. I would enjoy it, but I can't travel, so it doesn't really fit into my lifestyle right now. Commune in rural Medellin. I think that's something unique to add, but it would cost a lot of money to buy the land or rent it or whatever it takes. And I could do it for a long time, but sure as hell couldn't travel, right? So yeah. What other ideas do I have in here? This one we had an idea for a company builder. It's like a strategy company, but like, is it recession proof? I mean, not really. Like the first thing I think that you fire if you're in a recession, you got to make cutbacks as you fire your consultants. So it's not a very recession proof company. I'm not sure how much I care about that though. So this kind of gives you an idea for what's possible there, and I've got a link to that in the notes for this episode. But now we're gonna think about this another way. What are the other different ways? Because we just want to add a whole bunch of different business ideas at this point. So let's add another group of business ideas, and this really 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 important question. This is a really important question that will make you think. Dude, might take you a few days or months to even answer this question. It took me a really long time. Here's the question. What do you believe is true that most other people don't believe is true? Now, that's business related or not. What do you believe is true that most other people don't believe is true? That's a pretty tough thing, because even if you have some controversial views, like Trump's a great guy or Trump's a bad guy. It's like half the people think one or the other of those two things. So might believe it's true, but it's not really unique. So what do you believe is true that most people don't believe is true? So one is there's most other people don't think nuclear power is the future. There's a good number of people who do, but it's a little bit unique, you know. Um, Another thing that people tend not to believe is people tend to think that kids should go to school, and I don't think they should go to school. I think that's a waste of time, not only college, but grade school, even homeschooling. I think kids can learn better by being online, learning that way, Khan Academy, or being with friends and running a business and learning math through having a lemonade stand, etc. And not many people believe that. So it gives you a little advantage, and here's why. So um, this is actually from Peter Thiel. So here's the he actually wrote this book 0 to 1, and it's based on these lectures he gave. And he says, what important truth do very few people agree with you on? To a first approximation, the correct answer is going to be a secret. Secrets are unpopular or unconventional truths. So if you come up with a good answer, that's your secret. How many secrets are in this world? Reframed in a business context, the key question is, what great company is no one starting? So that, you see, that gives you a huge advantage. It's like that's kind of going back to that that question I actually have in on that spreadsheet is, do you have something unique to add, or do I have something unique to add, right? And that's the secret. Am I leveraging some kind of secret here, or how secret is this thing? So uh, think about that another way. So you can, right, whether it's business or not business related, you can still just write it down, because even if it's something that seems like you could never make money at it, look at it from a few different angles, talk to some friends, and pretty soon you'll see there's a way to make some money at that. So another way to think about this question, because coming up with an idea is easy, but refining and grinding day to day on a daily basis is hard. Like, it's psychologically hard, and you can only do it if you really love doing it for whatever reason. Either you love the money from it, or you love the idea, or you just love how it works on a day-to-day basis. So think about that. What do you like grinding at? What do you like working really hard at? Or better said, what do you like to do that most other people don't like to do? And I started a biogas company. I don't think that many people wanted to like work with cow shit. So it wasn't super sexy from certain perspectives, but I was cool with that because I thought it was freaking awesome. So there wasn't all that much competition in that area. So yeah, so that's kind of that big questions. What do you believe is true? Most other people don't believe is true. So you rank all of these different ideas, and you can start to filter out. Why do you care about certain things? I have this one idea: kombucha with THC. So it's like a weed kombucha. A friend of mine makes kombucha, and I was like, well, yeah, just add THC to it. That'll be a great beverage. I mean, maybe it will, but I feel like I've got nothing to really add there. It kind of ranks low. I started this leather gym bag business, but I didn't really care that much about leather gym bags. I liked mine, but I can't do it 80 hours a week. Here's another idea: Rick and Morty themed restaurant. I think someone must have done this already, but like, I can't travel, and I don't think I have anything particularly interesting to add to it. But some of these things we merged together. Like, here we got communal housing for millennials, and then we've got I guess Airbnb business, commune in rural Medellin. We combined these two, actually. So Ryan, who I did the podcast with, another friend, we all started a company together to buy land in Latin America. So we kind of merged all these ideas into one, and it turned out to be not too bad of an idea. And it does. You can see here, it takes like a lot of startup capital to get going to buy some land, but we've got time. It's not our main thing. We just keep on working away at it, saving money, investing money so that we can buy more land, So, so this is the basics. You can see actually, I'm kind of doing these things already. So I'm kind of do a podcast, doesn't really make any money, but grant writing business that one actually does. And so it bubbles up to the top. And that's one of the reasons why I started this. And I do have one home for couples who travel Latin America. And now you're watching my YouTube video series. And um, the Uber for mentoring coaching. I don't know. I guess I talked to my coach a little bit about that because I do have a coach now. And then we've got a company builder, company builder consulting, um, and that's actually pretty similar to the grant writing business because I combine those two things. So I write grants and I also help companies with their consulting and strategy. So here's another idea I had: custom clothing brand for tall, slim men. One of the things I found is that it's really much easier to sell to people who are just like you. If they're not like you. Here's an example. When I was running the biogas business, every day I would learn something new about the customer because they were cooking on a 3-stone fire, which means they had 3 stones, they had a firewood underneath, and they're cooking on top of that. And I could not relate to that at all. I couldn't relate to living in rural Kenya. I couldn't relate really to being a farmer and having cows. I had no idea what kinds of media they listened to or podcasts or church services or what was a status symbol. If I want to have a status symbol for people like me, I'd put like a MacBook Air. But them, I have no idea what a status symbol was. And so the more I learned I would never really understand. And it became really expensive to try to understand the market. Doing the marketing for people you don't understand is just, horribly difficult. So custom clothing brand for tall, slim men. I'm like, well, I do that for myself already. I am that person. I know where these people shop. I know what kinds of podcasts they listen to because I listen to the same ones, right? Um, I think that was a pretty interesting idea, and I think it could have worked out, but it definitely cost a lot to get started. And you can see what else here. I can't really travel all that much with it, and I don't care too much. I care a little bit about fashion. I'm a fashionable guy, but do I care that much that I can do it for 10 years? I don't think so. So one thing to think about is like, can you do this business for 10 years? Is this something you care about that much? So that's not a bad item to put on the list. And so actually for this grant writing one, I thought, well, I'm not sure I can do it for 10 years, but funny enough, I'm already kind of 5 years into the business because I was doing it before my previous company. The company I started, I was writing grants maybe 10 or 20% of the time. So I already built a network. I know how to write grants. I know how to win them. So I already had a head start. So I already understand how the market works. So when you're looking to start something new, you typically find people who are starting a new business. It's like they're employed doing this, or they started a business doing this one thing, and then they modified it slightly. They realized that there actually was the reason why they couldn't do this business, or the reason why they had a problem with their company, was because of this one thing. So I'll give you an example. A friend of mine started a company to do billing, or they had a company to sell electricity in developing countries. So had this complicated meter and the software and all these different things, and they sent SMSs to send codes to the meters and all these different things. So it had this whole elaborate system. But the company didn't work because they had to build everything from scratch. They had to build the software from scratch. They had to build the hardware from scratch. They had to do the marketing from scratch, everything from scratch. And there's just no way to do it. You can't be a specialist in 10 things. If you're a specialist in 10 things, you're a specialist in nothing. So they realized the real problem here, and the thing that they could really improve on, was the billing software, because the billing software wasn't that hard of a problem to solve, and it turned out lots of companies wanted it. So they closed down that company, started a new company which just focused exclusively on that billing software. So I guess it's similar for Takamoto, where we were trying to do 10 things and it was too many. So now we're just focused on this one thing that I know lots of companies need. So that if you're working at a company now, or do you have any personal experience where like repeatedly you run into the same problem at your startup or your company, then maybe that's something that you could start because you already know a lot about it. You've already got some expertise in it. Maybe you can cut down the time from 10 years to 8 years or 5 years, depending on, how much expertise you have in the area. So that's going to be part one. I'm going to do a part two as well. We're going to dive in a lot deeper into specific ideas. And that one you're going to see, okay, does this idea have legs or not? It's really important to actually do this now, because it's a lot cheaper to think about this for about 3 hours now than down the road, 3-4 years down the road, and you've spent millions of dollars and it doesn't work out. So that's good. And subscribe, because we're going to do a lot more videos. We're going to do part two. I'm going to do a video on hiring, because so many companies have no idea how to hire, and it's super expensive. You hire the wrong person, you're spending 6 months, I don't know, $5,000 a month. You can easily waste $30,000 hiring the wrong person. So subscribe, and we'll talk about that next. So that is all for now, and thanks for watching.